Alright, so in this video, I'm gonna create a script that will automatically drag down our formulas in our spreadsheet. What I basically want to happen, I want to be able to add some columns here, and I want to be able to go here and create a formula like this minus this. Let's actually do minus this. And when I hit enter, see, I want this to automatically just drag the formula down. So I don't have to go here and do this. Undo this. I also want to be able to update this. So if I drag this down, if I decide to go change this formula and change this to something else, it should automatically again update all the rest. And if possible, I want it also to work if I go and update the formula halfway through. So if I update this formula, I want all the formulas above and below to change as well. And I want this to work for other columns as well. So if I wanted to add another formula with a column, I want this to happen again the same way. So let's start with a basic thing here. Let's try to just create a script that will just take this formula and drag it down, right? So I'm just gonna click in the cell where the formula is, and I'm gonna try to grab the information in that cell and drag it down until the last row here. So I'm gonna go under Tools, Script Editor. That should get us started. I'm gonna rename this project, call this Drop Down. Now let's try to create a script. So the first thing I want to be able to do, I want to be able to get the current active cell that I'm in. So I'm gonna do that by first going to our spreadsheet app. Then in our spreadsheet app, let's just spell it right. We're gonna get our active spreadsheet. In our active spreadsheet, we'll get our active sheet. And in our active sheet, we will, well, let's just stop it at that and save this in a variable. I'm gonna say var active sheet equals to this. Go to the next row here, take this active sheet, and in that active sheet, we're gonna get our active cell, which should be the current cell that we're in. I'm gonna say var cell equals to that cell. So that's gonna be the cell. First, I want to figure out which column that cell is in. So I'm gonna say the column equals to cell dot get column. That should get us the number of the column that we're currently in. And basically we need to make sure that we drag our formula starting from the second row, because the first row is going to be the labels in this case, and until the last row down here. So that means that I'm going to do a range. So I'm going to take my cell and I'm going to copy that to, see, we need to copy it to a range destination. So that destination we're going to create on top of this. So I'm going to copy that. I'm going to say var destination equals to, and that should be a range. So that should be a range from our current worksheet. So from that, we're going to get range. Let's do this. So it shows up again, and we need to define the range size. So the range is going to start from the second row. So that's starting here. It's going to be in this column that we're currently in. So that column is going to be this col variable. And the number of rows we need to go down, well, it's going to be this last row, right? -1, because we have a label on top. So it's going to be basically like this many rows down. So to get to that, we're going to do active sheet again. And in that, we'll get the last row. Now, if your spreadsheet is laid out in a way that you have extra things below here, and the last row is not really the last row of your data, there are many different ways to get to your last row, and I have a video just about how to get last rows using different methods. So watch that to see which one works for you. For this, I'm just gonna go with straight and simple last row method. That should get me that. Now I need to do -1 because I have label on top here, so that's why I'm gonna do that -1. And the number of columns, well, that's just one column for my formula. It's gonna be 1. So that's gonna be my destination range, and that's where I'm copying this to. See that cell, I'm gonna copy to that destination, and that should copy the formula down. Now let's try this and see what happens, right? So I'm gonna first of all try to run this. It will ask me for some permission stuff, and I'm gonna go ahead and do that. So let's just quickly do all of this, allow running. So that ran. Let's go back and check what's going on. So apparently I'm here on the bottom blank cell. That should not work. So I'm going to try to undo that and go here. So this is where I should have been. So this is the formula I want to drag down. I'm going to click on this, go back and try to run this again. Go back, and there it is. So see, if I look here, there's our formula. We dragged it down using a script. Now what I also want to check, will this work if that wasn't the first one on top? So I'm gonna just remove some of these formulas below and above. Just keep this one formula somewhere in the middle. I'm gonna click on this one and go back and rerun the script to just see what happens. So it seems like it worked just fine. So that created a script that will basically just drag the formula up and down based on the current active cell. But the problem with this is that every time we have to just go and run this. So we don't want to do this. Instead, we want this to happen automatically. So to do that, we need to use onAdded trigger. So let's just go and take a look at our onAdded trigger to see how it works. That's our event object. Let's go back to open, change, edit. That's the one we want to look at. So now this is going to show us what are the available event objects here. So first of all, let me just go ahead and create that function. So that will be function onAdded. So this function will run every time we make a change in our spreadsheet. So this function will accept an argument here, e, and that argument is basically going to be an object, and that object is going to have these properties that are showing here on top. So some of the properties that I'm interested in here are, first of all, the old value and the new value. And the reason I'm interested in those is because I only want to run this thing if the formula actually changes. Because if we already have a formula here that works and somebody opens this and hits enter, I don't want to run this all over again. I only want to run if there are any differences in our previous formula and the new formula. That's the only time I want to run this drag down all over again. So I need to compare my old value to the new value to see what happened before and after the change. So first of all, let me try to log those things out so you can see what's going on here. So I'm going to create some logs here. So logger log. And what we're going to log is that e dot. So let's go see what those things are called. See, there's value and there's old value. So let's do old value first. That's going to be that one. And then let's log out the new one as well. And the new one is value, apparently with lowercase. So that. It's case sensitive, so be careful. So I'm going to save this. Let's just go back here and change one of these things to just see what happens. See, this is the formula. I'm going to go in and hit enter. See, it says equals D2 minus E2, and that's the value. Let's go back and try to check what happened with our logs. So I go here, check the log. There's nothing in here. So it may have not triggered on edit, or maybe we just have to refresh this. But just to make sure, let's just go and change one of these formulas. I'm going to change this formula to be this minus that. I'm going to hit enter. Let's go back and take a look. The log. And yeah, so that triggered it. So it gives us the old value and it gives us the new value. So apparently that doesn't even trigger if the value stays the same as it was. So if you just open this and hit enter without changing anything, it doesn't seem like it triggers that at all. So we didn't get any logs, which means we don't even probably have to compare to see if the old value and the new value are different, which is good. So now let's get to the other part. So this will also have this range object in it, and range is basically the cell that you're currently editing, the same way that we have this active cell right here. So that range, so I'm going to get rid of this too. We don't need those anymore. So that range is going to be our current active cell. And one thing that I want to do, I want to make sure that we only drag this down if this thing actually is a formula. And if somebody were to just go in here and just type something like this, I don't want to drag that down. So let's go and make that change first of all right here to this function so we can verify that it works. So I'm going to first clear all of these so I can test that. I'm going to go back here, go right there. That gets us the column. So let's get the cell, and in that cell we want to check if that's a formula, right? So what I'm going to do, I'm going to run this get formula method to see if there is a formula in the cell. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to do an if statement. I'm going to say if that cell get formula is not equal to blank, then we're going to run this copy down script, all of that. Let's check if this actually works. So I need to just tab this in just to keep this clean. I'm going to go here, just type some random text, click on this. Let me go and run this function. Go check, see nothing is dragging up or down. That's good news. Now let me go ahead and create a formula here. Click on this cell, go back and rerun that. And now because that was a formula, that dragging down worked. So that's good. So now I'm going to clear this again. Let's go back and apply all of these to this. So every time we change the cell, we want something to happen. So what we need to do, first we need to get the cell. So see this cell that we got here, we get the active sheet and get the active cell. Well, we don't need to do that. Here there is this E object which is gonna have this range in it, which is really the cell. So instead of doing this, I'm gonna do E.range. That should give us the cell that was just edited. So most of this is gonna stay the same. So I'm just gonna copy paste all of that right here. So then we do cell, we get the column, we check if the thing is a formula, and then we drag it down. There's gonna be one problem. This active sheet, well, it's not gonna exist because we didn't get it like we do here. So one thing we can do inside of this event thing, see, there's also source, which is the spreadsheet. So if we go here, we can do that E.source. That's going to be that. So this active sheet is going to be equal to, similar to here. Now the spreadsheet app get active sheet is pretty much the same thing as this E.source at this point. And then inside of that, we can get the active sheet in this case. So that's the tab that we're currently on. So that should get me this. So I'm going to save this. So now hopefully this should work out. So let's try this. and see how it works. So I'm going to go here and create a formula. I'm going to say, let's take this minus this. Hit enter, and nice. So that's dragging down nicely. Good. Let's go here and create another formula. New one. Let's take this minus this. Good, that works. Let me try to go and update this formula some way halfway through to see if this works. I'm going to change this minus to multiplication. As you can see, it worked for all of them. So this basically just drags down our formulas. So anything that's not a formula, however, shouldn't do that. And as you can see, it does not. I don't need that anymore. This pretty much is all I need. This is my automatic drag down thing. Now, one thing we might want to do instead of dragging everything down, so this is now going to make sure that every formula you do, wherever you do, it's going to drag that formula down. You may or may not want that to happen. Now, you may want to limit this to just certain columns instead of just dragging every formula everywhere. So this is going to even work if we just make a duplicate of this tab and do this on a different tab, right? So if I make a duplicate, see, now we have two different tabs. I go on this tab and let's say I make a different formula here. There it is. It's just going to drag it down automatically. So now this is going to work across this whole spreadsheet. Now let's try to limit this to only specific things. Let's say we want to just limit this to this tab. Let's also limit that to maybe certain columns from this tab from that point on. So let's copy the name of this tab. I'm going to hit escape, go back here, and I'm going to make some changes. So this is going to get us the active worksheet that we're on. I want to make sure that that current worksheet that we're on is this one before we run what we run. So we can just add an if statement. We could do it right here. We could do it before. So I guess let's do it maybe here. So I'm going to do an if statement right there. And I'm going to put that whole block all the way until here in my if statement to first make sure we're on the right tab. So I'm going to say if that active sheet, let's put that in quotations. So I'm going to say if this active sheet dot, so that is going to have, that active sheet should have a property in that. Let's go spreadsheet and then let's do the sheet object. So that should give us what's available here. Let's see. So get something like get name or get spreadsheet name. Let's see, let's just search. There it is, get name. So that's going to return the name of the tab. That's good. I'm going to go here and say if that get name equals to this, then we want to run all of this. Let's just comment this. So this is if tab name matches. So that should work. If we want to be able to do this for multiple tabs, maybe we'll also just do an array instead of doing just this one thing. So we can just do var tabs, and I'm going to create an array here. And that's going to be, well, currently it's just going to be just this one tab. And what I'm going to do, I'm just going to do this. So I'm going to say if tabs, and because it's an array, we can do index of, and index of this. So I have to make sure, by the way, that this is spelled correctly because this index of is case sensitive. So basically, if the index of this is not equal to -1, because it's going to be -1 when it's not able to find that name in this list of tabs that you provide. If it's not -1, it's one of the tabs we want to target. And then this should allow you to do comma and type different names of tabs. Well, they will go in here if you wanted to add more tabs to be auto dragging down. But I'm just gonna leave it at this and go check if this works and do a formula. This divided by 2. So that worked, as you can see, well. Now I want to make sure that also doesn't work for this one. So I'm going to go this divided by 2. That doesn't do anything because this is not one of the tabs that are listed in that list. But if I go back and add, I'm going to just call it other. And let's just add other to the list of tabs we want to target here. So if I go here, do a comma and do other in quotes, I should be able to go here and now do the same thing. And as you can see now it works. I'm going to go ahead and remove this. So now that shouldn't work in this tab anymore. And as you can see, that didn't update. And it should still work on this one. Awesome. So that works, and that limits to this. Now we could also limit it to particular columns instead of just running it at all columns. So we may want to say if that's the column number 4 or column number 5 or something like that, we want to run this. Otherwise, just don't run the function. So to do that, I'm going to go back here, and after we check that the name of the tab matches here, and we got the range and we got which column we're in, we're going to say if this is in a particular column. So now I'm thinking maybe I'll do another array here of columns and do an array of which columns we want to target. So let's say we want to target column this one. So this is which one? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 8. And 9 maybe. 6, 8, and 9. So I'm going to do 6, 8, 9. Those are the columns we need to target. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to go here and check after I get the column if it's in the right column. So I'm going to go ahead and do an if statement here. I'm going to copy this and paste that here and close it right below. I'll indent this and comment this. So this is if column match. That's good. So here, instead of doing tabs, I'm going to check columns, and we're going to do index of that this col. If the column is not, again, it's not equal to -1, then we know it's one of the columns we want to target. Then we want to do this whole thing all over again. So I'm going to save this. Now this hopefully should be working for column 6, 8, and 9. Let's try this. I'm going to go here. This is column 6. Let's try to change this formula. That worked for this column. Now let's try to 6, 8. So this shouldn't do anything. So let's divide this and see what happens. See, nothing happened for this formula because it was not one of the columns. Now this one, this should do something because that's one of the columns. Let's take this and multiply it by 2. And this new column should work too. So if I do this to the power of 2, it should do that too, right? So that should just drag down that formula, and this column shouldn't do anything. If we do something like this, see, it doesn't drag it down. And by the way, this should also not do anything because that's the name of the tab. So yeah, so that drags down. Now you could take this to the next level, I guess, and work with an object where you provide these names of tabs and columns in a way that you can do an object of the name of the tab and the columns inside of the tab, so that way you can make it more fancy. You can just target certain columns in this tab and certain columns in this other tab. But for more or less simple project, this should work just fine. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.